Chapter 13, Shadows in the Night. The first night after her week of respite should have been peaceful. It wasn't. The air in Elowyn's chamber was thick with the quiet hum of magical wards, candlelight flickering against polished marble. She had been resting, her mind still burdened by Akini's warnings and the uncertain future ahead. And then, the cold kiss of steel. She barely had time to react before a figure lunged from the shadows, a gleam of silver. A blade aimed at her heart. Terror seized her. Magic, wild and uncontrollable, surged from the depths of her soul, and in that instant something answered. Darkness exploded from beneath her bed. A spectral beast emerged in an instant. The assassin barely had time to react before a massive black-furred hound tackled him to the ground. Its claws, the size of daggers, pinned him beneath its weight. A low, menacing growl rumbled through the room, shaking the walls. The man gasped, his blade clattering to the floor as he thrashed under the beast's grip. Elowyn couldn't breathe. She stared, frozen, her heart hammering. The hound had saved her. The moment shattered as Celine burst into the room. "Elowyn!" She didn't hesitate. She grabbed the princess, shielding her, dagger already drawn. Then, the thunder of footsteps. Shouts filled the halls as arcane guards stormed inside, their staffs crackling with energy. The hound gave a final, guttural growl before vanishing into shadow, leaving only the battered assassin behind. The man, now subdued by the guards, writhed under their grasp, but there was no escape. Tension thickened the air. Celine turned to Elowyn, gripping her shoulders. "Are you hurt?" Elowyn swallowed hard. "I don't know." Adrenaline still coursed through her, but she was alive. She was alive because of the hound. And in the flickering candlelight, the cold realization set in. Someone had tried to kill her, and they had almost succeeded. A kingdom on edge! By morning, the castle was in an uproar. Rumours spread like wildfire. The princess had been attacked. An assassin had slipped past the royal defences. The nobles were furious, not just at the breach in security, but at what it implied. If one assassin had dared to strike at the princess, who would be next? Whispers of fear slithered through the court. Some wondered if this was the first sign of a coup. Others feared open war loomed on the horizon. And when her cousin arrived, his expression was grim. Prince Alastair strode into the chamber where Elowyn was recovering, his posture rigid, his jaw tight with restrained fury. The door barely shut before he spoke. "Whoever did this," he said, voice low and sharp, "will suffer." Elowyn looked up from her seat, still pale from the night's events. "It could have been anyone," she murmured, "and that's what makes it worse." Alastair exhaled slowly, his gaze sweeping the room as if danger still lurked in the shadows. "This was no common thief," he said at last. "This was an assassin, trained and deliberate." He turned to her, eyes dark. "Do you have any enemies we don't know about?" Elowyn hesitated. She knew exactly who was against her. But this wasn't just about her. "The nobles are afraid," she admitted. "And they should be. If they could reach me, they could reach any of us." Silence settled between them. Then Alastair rubbed his temple, exhaling sharply. "We need to find out who ordered this," he said. "And we need to do it fast." Elowyn nodded. "Because if they didn't, the next assassin might not fail." The days after the assassination attempt were filled with unease. Despite the Royal Intelligence Network's best efforts, no evidence had surfaced identifying who had ordered the attack. The captured assassin had been silenced before he could be interrogated, his body found in his cell, his veins dark with a potent magical toxin. Whoever was behind this had resources, but the truth finally came through the magicians. The man had been a member of the Shadow Guild, an underground organization infamous for espionage, sabotage, and high-profile assassinations. And worse, they had been paid by the Emerald City.
"The hand of the Archduke."
The Emerald City, a kingdom ruled by magocracy. At its head sat Archduke Eos, son of the goddess of magic herself, a figure of unmatched arcane power and political cunning. If the order had come from the Emerald City, it meant word of the royal bloodline had reached him. Yet no official statement had been made, no warning, no accusations, no declarations, only silence. That made it even more dangerous. The attack could have been a test to see how much Elowyn knew, or worse, a warning. Either way, they needed answers, and so Elric was sent. Elric's departure. As a member of the Emerald Covenant, the Council of Archmages advising the rulers of the Emerald City, Elric was the only one who could demand an explanation. But the decision left Elowyn uneasy. Standing at the castle gates, watching as Elric and his escort prepared to leave, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was a mistake. Her fingers clenched the fabric of her cloak. "You don't have to do this," she murmured. Elric turned, sharp green eyes studying her. "Yes, I do." His voice was calm, but there was weight behind it. "This attack wasn't just against you, Elowyn. It was a message. We need to find out what the Emerald City knows and why they chose this method of responding." Elowyn hesitated. Twice now she had almost lost him. First, when he was wrongfully imprisoned for uncovering the truth. And now, when he was being sent away, alone, into the hands of those who might want him dead. She hated it, but she also knew he was right. So instead of protesting, she lifted her chin and forced herself to nod. "I'll be waiting," she said. Elric gave a faint smile. "Then I'll return." A kingdom without... As Elric rode away, a sense of vulnerability settled over the castle. The princess's most trusted ally was gone, and there was no guarantee he would return. For the first time, Elowyn felt truly alone. Chapter 13, Shadows in the Night. Elric's departure left a void in the castle, one Elowyn felt deeply. His presence had been a constant source of wisdom and reassurance. Without it, she had to face the challenges ahead alone, or so she thought, because Lyra had other plans.
Lessons in magic and manipulation.
"Come along, princess!" Lyra's delicate fingers wrapped around Elowyn's wrist as she dragged her through the castle corridors, a mischievous glint in her golden eyes. Elowyn had barely finished breakfast before being whisked away. Now they stood before the grand doors of the royal archives. "Lyra, why are we here?" The elven mage smirked. "To dote on you, obviously." Before Elowyn could protest, Lyra pulled her inside. The archives were dimly lit, rows upon rows of ancient tomes stretching high into the vaulted ceiling. The air smelled of aged parchment and candle wax, and a soft hush hung over the space like a sacred spell. Lyra led her to a secluded chamber, where stacks of books already waited on the table. Elowyn frowned. "This is doting?" Lyra grinned. "For me, yes." She tapped the books. "You learn. I get the joy of watching you struggle through arcane theory. A fair trade, don't you think?" Elowyn sighed. She should have known self-interest was involved. Still, she wasn't about to waste the opportunity. "If I'm learning," she said, taking a seat, "then you're teaching me something actually useful." Lyra's eyes gleamed. "Oh, I plan to." And so the lessons began. The week passed in a blur of magical theory and spellcasting exercises. Elowyn refined her control over her wild magic, strengthening her barriers and reinforcing her ability to manipulate the forces around her. Lyra, despite her playful nature, was a harsh teacher. Whenever Elowyn failed, the elf would laugh, prod, and demand better. But when she succeeded, Lyra would praise her in ways that made her ears burn. "Good girl," Lyra purred one afternoon after Elowyn successfully shattered a conjured illusion. The princess nearly dropped her spell. Lyra laughed mercilessly. "Why do you say things like that?" Elowyn muttered, rubbing her temples. "Because it's fun," Lyra answered with a wink. Steel and strategy, weekdays were for magic. Weekends were for steel. Alistair was far less flirtatious than Lyra, thankfully, but no less relentless. On the training grounds, he put a wooden sword in her hands and didn't let her leave until she could at least parry properly. "If you're ever disarmed in a fight," he told her as they crossed blades, "you need to know what can be used against you." Elowyn gritted her teeth as the force of his strike made her stumble. Her arms ached from the repetition, but she refused to stop. She needed to be stronger. By the end of the first session, she collapsed onto a bench, panting heavily. Alistair sat beside her, arms crossed. "You did well," he said simply. Elowyn glanced at him, surprised. He rarely gave compliments. "Thank you." The shadow in the court, but not everyone was pleased with Elowyn's progress. Lord Castian Vale, one of the king's closest advisers, had begun to actively work against her. A man of razor-sharp wit and a tongue laced with venom, Castian was a menace in court affairs. At every turn, he questioned her judgment, her presence, her worth. "Perhaps the princess should focus on matters suited to her station," he remarked one afternoon after hearing of her sword training. Perhaps Lord Vale should focus on matters that do not concern him, Elowen replied, her voice icy. A few murmurs spread among the nobles at her defiance, but Castian only smirked. He was not easily shaken, and that made him dangerous, because he was not just an obstacle, he was an enemy.